All right, team. Welcome. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate you coming in at 6:30 Thursday night. It's not ideal for everyone, but I appreciate you guys jumping in, getting involved, coming to learn something about nutrition. Now, perennially, I've run these heavily over time. I'm going to do my best to keep on an hour schedule tonight. What we are going to go through today, we're going to touch on the challenge, what it looks like, everything that's involved, how it all works on the app, and what we're actually going to be focusing on. Before we get to that though, how many of you guys have jumped into a nutrition challenge in the past? Yeah, a few of us. Yeah, a lot of us. How many of you lost weight during the challenge? How many of you kept it off? Now, this is, I guess, the part that we saw with the challenges that we ran, why we've gone this route. Looking at a habit-based approach helps us keep it sustainable and maintainable in the long term. So we want that to be 2 months down the line, we're able to look at where we are, and we've made progress still. It doesn't matter if we don't make quite as much progress in 4 weeks, it's about the long term and setting us up for success long term. That's what we look at. We see probably 2/3 of people who do a diet, just like a kickstart diet or a short diet, 4-week diet, whatever. If you follow a nutrition plan, whatever it is, they make progress, but 2/3 of people add weight a month, 2 months later. So they put it back on, often with interest. So we want to try and avoid that. Now, if we look at HSN or Healthy Steps Nutrition, what the foundation is and why we partner with these guys is because they try and make it as simple as possible. Something as fundamental as nutrition shouldn't be complicated. It should be relatively straightforward, and you should be able to follow that for the long term. It's such a fundamental part of us being, us living, and us being the best versions of ourselves that we need to be able to do that without thinking too much. Now, we all know, I guess, for us to be the best versions of ourselves, it's not just about nutrition and exercise. You hear nutrition and exercise so much, but we all know that there's so much more that goes into it than that. So, as you can see, these are the 6 factors of health. We've got sleep, stress, support, lifestyle, and then we have nutrition and exercise. Obviously, nutrition and exercise are a big part, but we've got those other 4 factors as well that feed into us being the best versions of ourselves for the long term. Now, what we're going to do throughout this challenge, or challenge, kickstart, whichever way you want to look at it, and what we're going to actually be doing tonight, what the objectives are here, what we're going to try and do, we want to help you understand how to set yourself up for success in the long term, how to build those habits that we're going to be able to sustain 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the line, so that once this finishes, ideally, or once we go past ongoing coaching down the line, we've given you some habits that you're able to sustain. We want to find out where you need to start, where you're at, meet you there, and then help you to move towards where you want to be. Everyone's going to be on a little bit of a different point in that journey, similar to us downstairs. Like, everyone's at a little bit of a different point in their fitness, wellness, sickness continuum journey. We're all trying to move to fitness. We all just start on different points of that journey. And this is no different. Nutrition is no different. So we want to help utilize the tools we have to support you to get to where you want to be. Now, that's where we are now. I want you guys just to, if you've got one of the diaries there, or one of the handbooks there, just go to the back page. There's a thing that says notes. Just go to the notes section, or if you've got a pen and a piece of paper, mark just jump to the back page or jump to a spare piece of paper. I want you guys just to go through a quick self-assessment. So while we think about this, what I ask you guys to do is just to write down or even think about what does success look like for you in the next 4 weeks. If we take the time to think about it, 4 weeks' time, where do you want to be? Write that down. Success, what's that look like? It's going to be different for everyone. Write that down. From there, we'll write another dot point down. If you've done nutrition challenges in the past, a lot of us have, what worked well for you? What are the habits you've been able to sustain from those previous nutrition challenges? Now, it might not be anything, or it might be as simple as I ate breakfast. It could be. Go through, write those down. What worked well? What do you know works well? Getting out of bed at 7 a.m. as opposed to snoozing the alarm 9 times.
Getting into the gym on time. Not doing the warm up on time.
Sledging from the back.
God, just quiet.
No,
I'm going red up here. Like,
Yeah, being on time.
No. From there, guys, just write down the next dot point. What have you struggled with the most, or what do you struggle with the most with your nutrition? What's your biggest struggle? Now, I know we've chatted a little bit about this for those I've caught up with, probably Kylie as well, but just write that down. What's your biggest nutrition struggle? Not sure of, what do you not know about? What is your biggest challenge? And then the last one, we put another asterisk or dot point. What is the biggest barrier or the biggest factor that's inhibited or stopped you from seeing progress in the past? Why haven't you seen the progress that you would have liked to have seen in the past? Why aren't we all standing around at 15% body fat, lean, strong, athletic, the people that we want to be? Why are we not there? What is the biggest factor that we struggle with? Now, those are going to be some things that we can come back, reflect on, read over. Whenever we're struggling for a little bit of motivation, whenever we're struggling to see where we want to be, see where we are, and understand the reason why we're doing what we're currently doing. You might want to go back and watch that, John. That's okay. All right. For the next part we're going to go through is the goal setting section. Now, there is a goal setting section in the guide. You can use that, but you don't have to. When we're looking at goal setting, a lot of us have started to chat about goals in our initial consult, in our catch up at the start after our scans, or with our scans. With our goals, there's a few factors that we want to look at. We want them to be specific, measurable, achievable, or attainable, realistic, and time bound. So if my goal is to be 6 foot, probably, going to be honest, it's probably not attainable. Going to need some very high shoes. But we want to be realistic with the goals that we're trying to set. Now, if we're trying to lose 10 kilos in 4 weeks, can happen. Probably not realistic outside of maybe. Now, we want to think about the why behind our goals. why it's important to us. Why do we want to be leaner? Why do we want to feel fitter? Why do we want to be stronger? Is it a confidence thing? Is it more of a, for a lot of people, I know it is a mental well-being thing, and that's the conversation I've had. It's feeling stronger, feeling more confident, feeling more athletic. It comes down to a lot of confidence. But everybody's going to be a little bit different. Some of us may want to wear a piece of clothing we haven't worn in years. Some of us may want to go out and do something that we haven't done in years. Some of us might want to come into the gym and take our shirt off and do that sort of stuff and feel good in ourselves. And that absolutely. But it's important to understand where we want to go and why. Now, obviously, with what we do with Healthy Steps, it's all built on the foundations and it's all built on the basics of nutrition. And the basics of just the 6 pillars that we looked at: sleep, stress, support, lifestyle, nutrition, and exercise. If we're looking at the basics, what we want to do is focus on one thing at a time. If we try and do 10 things, chances are we're probably not going to be able to maintain any of it. And we've all been in those things where we've tried New Year's resolution to try and change 10 things at once. 2 weeks later, we're doing nothing. We can change one thing at a time, do that sustainably. Once we've got that down, build that habit, we add something on top of that. Got that down, we add a 3rd thing on top of that. And we just continue to build up habits throughout the year. You'll be amazed at, you get to the end of the year, we've continued to build habits once we've formed a previous habit, how far we can actually get. And that's what we want to look at. What we actually want to try and do is add things in instead of taking things away. It's not that chocolate bar is terrible. How about we eat some veggies? How about we drink some water? How about we eat some protein before we do those things and see how we feel, as opposed to going straight for the chocolate bar or depriving ourselves of that chocolate bar and then all we think about is that chocolate bar. I don't know about you guys, but I love a piece of cheesecake. Not going to eat the cheesecake. I love cheesecake. But before I eat that cheesecake, I'm going to go and have a protein snack or a drink of water or whatever it may be. 17 coffees, whatever I need to do. Now, there's some things that we want to look at in terms of our basics. We want to focus on real food over food products. The more we can eat real food, the more vitamins, minerals we're going to get, the more full we're going to be from those food. We want to look at cleaning out our pantry. So if you go to the pantry, you've got all these kid snacks that are highly processed, probably not the best form of nutrition for us. Sure, if you can't throw those out, that's absolutely fine. Put them in a box, put them at the cupboard at the back, or on the bottom, or right up high where we can't reach them, where we don't look at them, where we only get them out for kids, whatever. If that's what it needs to be, that's fine. But think about going through, cleaning out your pantry, putting all of the things that we want to have that's going to move us towards our goals: bowl of fruit, high protein snack options, things that are whole foods. Put them front and center. Tins of tuna, all that sort of stuff. Eggs. Put those front and center so when we go for a snack, we see those options that we can have that are not going to take us away from our goals. So they're going to move us towards our goals. We want to think about progress over perfection. So not every day is going to be perfect. None of us are perfect. It doesn't matter who any of us are. You look at people on Instagram, whatever, those influencers, whatever they are, there's no way they're perfect. There's no way any of us are perfect. But we want to look at making progress for the long term as opposed to perfection. What that looks like? Sure, we go out, we have our meal with our family. I don't want to be the guy that goes to the party and doesn't eat the cake. I'm going to eat the cake. Absolutely. I'm probably going to have 7 beers as well. But after that, the next day, we're going to come back and we're going to get back on the wagon in terms of our nutrition. We're going to eat our protein, we're going to eat our veggies, we're going to drink our water. We're going to move our habits in the right direction towards where we want to go with our health. And then the last thing we want to look at is something like the plate method. And we'll dive more into that. Now, our first principle that look at the HSN, it's going to be adding more whole foods into our diet. Now, what that looks like for a lot of us is going to be adding in some form of veggies, some form of fruit. Now, I know people in the past who haven't eaten any veggies. We have nutrition clients now that don't eat vegetables. I just don't eat them. That's okay. You might not like vegetables the way they've been prepared in the past, and that's absolutely fine. Doesn't mean vegetables are bad. It just means you haven't found a way that works for you yet. We had a 10-year-old girl or 10-year-old girl live with us for probably 8 months. She hated broccoli. Never ate broccoli. The reason being, she only ever had steamed broccoli out of the microwave. Hated it. We started roasting broccoli, putting some seasoning on it, garlic powder, chicken salt. Loves broccoli. It's just finding a way to prepare these things in a different manner than what you're used to find an option in the market. And everyone's going to be a little bit different. It doesn't matter what it is. It might not work for one person. It could work for another person. It's just trying different things, giving it a chance. With our plate method, I mentioned previously, what we look at with our nutrition, this is what a basic plate should look like. Now, it's not always going to look like this. If we go out for a meal, it's not always going to be perfect. And that's okay. What we want to think about is adding in as many veggies to that plate as possible, because the more vegetables we're able to eat, the more calories. For a lot of us that are looking at weight loss, the more calories we're going to be, the more food we're going to be able to eat without those excess calories. You still want to have a good source of protein, good source of fat. A lot of that will come from either our meat or our fat sources in terms of eggs, nuts, all that sort of stuff. And that'll all be in there that we'll dive into in a minute. We've also got our, our quarter plate of starch, which is a carbohydrate. If we're looking at muscle, if we're looking at performance in the gym, that starch becomes quite important. But it isn't the predominant thing. I don't know if you guys grew up around the same thing I did, but a bowl of pasta with the parents or when I was a kid was a bowl of pasta with a little bit of meat on top. Just pure pasta. That doesn't look anything like this. Now what we want to try and do is add in as much in the way of vegetables or non-starchy vegetables as we can. That's where we're going to get our micronutrients. That's the stuff that helps us build that. Our second principle is going to be focusing on balancing our meals in terms of protein, carbs, and fat. So we want to try and get a source of protein, source of carbohydrates, and a source of fat in all of our meals. Now, I know not every meal is going to be absolutely perfect, absolutely perfectly balanced, and that's okay. But as long as we have some fat, some protein, and some carbohydrates in most of our meals, we're going to pretty well. What we'll go through in a second is going to dive into each of those macronutrients, how much we need, what we're actually looking at if we're looking at performance, when we want to try and get those in. But we want to think about getting a source of protein, carbs, and fats in the majority of our meals, breakfast, lunch, and even our snacks. Now, we'll have a look at protein. I don't know about you guys, I love eating protein. I don't know if anybody's ever been in the boat where they get the, the meat sweats, just eating too much protein, you start sweating out. I've definitely been there. Protein is really important in terms of muscle building, muscle growth, recovery from training. If we're trying to get bigger, trying to build muscle, super important for getting protein. Now, protein should make up about 30% of our calories. I know a lot of us are not going to track our calories. That's absolutely fine. I don't track mine either. Just make sure you've got half a plate or a quarter of a plate of protein on or in each meal, especially around our training. Quarter of a plate of protein in each meal is what we're trying to do. carbohydrates to about 30%. Now, some of those protein sources will have fat in it as well. That's okay. Chicken or animal sources are the best because they're going to have a fuller amino acid profile. It's going to be better for building muscle. That doesn't mean vegetarians can't attain that. Vegetarians, vegan, there are some options. And if you are vegetarian, vegan, I'll probably, if you've spoken to me, I'll probably give you some options to go with there. But come and see us. We can help you with some options. Making sure we've got protein in all our foods. Now, in terms of protein, protein is going to be 4 calories per gram. Very similar to carbohydrates, which is also 4 calories per gram. Sources that you'll have these in your guides there. So on your protein sources page, these lean options are going to be things that have less fat in them. Overall, they're going to be less calorie dense. Things to snack on, I always go to something like a tuna or a YoPro yogurt. There's a bit of carbohydrates in that YoPro, but you look at things that are going to be lower in fat, higher in protein. That's what I always go for. Things that are more moderate in high protein, you're looking at sirloin steaks, obviously a little bit more marbled, some fat in there. And then you go to your higher fat options, things like bacon, things like sausages, all that sort of stuff. Whilst they have a high protein content, they've also got a lot of fat. They can be quite calorie dense. Now, if you look at carbohydrates, carbohydrates get quite a bad rap in a lot of instances, but they are the predominant or the primary source of fuel for our body, especially in the activity that we do, especially in that high intensity activity that we look at when we think about CrossFit, we think about high intensity exercise. So it becomes super important that we do have some form of carbohydrates in our diet for a lot of people. Now, looking at carbohydrates in terms of how many we're eating, we want to have half a plate of non-starchy carbohydrates, which is volume carbohydrates. You need as much of that as you want. We'll go through that in a second. But you want to have some form of starchy carbohydrates in your diet. Now, obviously being a diabetic, I'm pretty adverse to a lot of starchy carbohydrates. Definitely doesn't mean you can't build muscle mass. It definitely doesn't mean you can't perform. Being a little bit low with that. Some people's bodies run better on those sources, on those starchy carbohydrates. Some people feel better. They just feel better eating more fat-based sources. Either way, fats and carbs are your fuel for exercise. Proteins where we put muscle, carbs and fats are how we fuel our body for exercise. These would be our starchy carb options. Things that are on the low glycemic index or they absorb slower. You compare these with a protein, it's going to slow that absorption down even more. This is a US-based list, so it's going to be a little bit different than what we're going to see out here. To be honest, I don't know what a lot of these things are. Clementine, I think it's Mandarin, but I'm not actually sure. It doesn't feature in my vocabulary. However, we do have our food options guide that we give out to you guys. Give that to you as well, Mark. Anybody else that's watching as well, we'll send that through to you. These are our more Australian or our more common options that we have out here that you guys can go to. Ours is labeled as a volume carbohydrates, and then as I think it's a starchy carbohydrates. Yeah. So there's some options there just for you guys to look. Now, if we look at the next slide and at the next page, wherever you're at, we look at volume carbohydrates. These are the things that should make up half of your plate. If probably not going to be able to do this at breakfast. Very difficult at breakfast. But we do look at this sort of stuff at lunch and at dinner. The more of this stuff you're able to eat, the better you're going to be in terms of how you feel. Vitamins, minerals, feel better. The fuller you're going to be because you're going to be able to eat more volume of these things without all those extra calories. So you want to go through, if you've got that list there, go through, circle probably 5 or 6 things that you feel that you're able to eat or that you like on that list. Either the list that we've given you or the list in the booklet. Go through, circle those. Because there's going to be a lot there that you can actually go through and consume without a lot of calories. We'll get all this stuff to you as well, Mark. So we'll have a booklet there. Now, if we have a look at fats now, so I'm moving on to fat. Carbohydrates, 4 calories per gram. Protein, 4 calories per gram. Add in the fat on the side. If we purely look at fat now, fats are actually 9 calories per gram. So they are the most calorie dense of all of our macronutrients. But we do need those. They are necessary for some vitamins to be absorbed into the body. So we need those fats to come in to be able to consume those or absorb those fat soluble vitamins. Now, fat oftentimes, like carbohydrates, gets a bad rap. Contrary to popular belief, eating fat doesn't make you fat. Eating too much is what leads us down that path. Overeating, on whether it be carbs, protein, fat, overeating tends to make us fat. Eating a lot of protein helps us stay full for a long period of time. Very difficult to overeat. Fat keeps us full, but we can also overeat it. Carbohydrates, very easy to overeat. They burn really quickly. You have a massive breakfast of porridge, you're going to be hungry again in about 2 hours. You need to get some protein. That's why we want to try and balance all of that. Fats, similar to carbohydrates, make up about 30 to 40% of our daily needs. Now, as I said before, everyone runs a little bit differently. Some people prefer carbs, some people will prefer fats, and feel better on each macronutrient in terms of how much they consume. Carbs and fats are about 30 to 40%. Protein stays at around that 30, 35%. The list of healthy fats, get those omega, I think it's omega-3s we're really looking at to try and make sure we stay on top of those. Get those from a lot of nuts, fish, all that sort of stuff. There's a list there, as I said, to go through and have a look at. Just try and make sure we're getting some fats in our diet as well. Our third principle is going to be limiting the amount of processed sugar that we eat. In terms of processed sugar or sugar in our added sugar in our diet, the average person, average Australian person, consumes about 70 kilos of sugar. Now, that's probably not the people in this room. Like, we've all gone down the path enough to know that sugar is probably not the best for us. But that's a pretty scary fact. Have you guys been to the airport? Seen people walking around at the airport? Pretty confronting. They're not really my people.
But is that added sugar as opposed to sugar?
Absolutely fruit, absolutely fine. That's added sugar. That's you're looking at 6 teaspoons is the recommended dose. 6 for women, 9 for men. The average person is eating about 46 teaspoons. It's a lot of sugar. Even let's say you have 1 sugar in your coffee, that's 46 coffees. That's a lot of coffee. It's a lot of sugar. So, and as I said, I don't think the people that are in this room are going to be on that end of the spectrum, but that is what we're doing. That is where society is. So we want to try and limit the amount of added sugar within our diet. Fruit has fructose, which is sugar. Eat as much fruit as you want. Don't stress about it. It's fruit. It's a whole food. There's a lot of fiber in it. Don't stress. Nobody ever got fat. Stress. Whole foods. Now,
Can we take a quick pause?
yeah.
Mark, I'm going to have to kick you out for a second and come back because it's going to, there's only a 40-minute limit on it. So,
You didn't tell me that.
Not. I was like, standing here going, oh, that's gonna.
so just join back in a second.